Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Stephen King podcast. This is bonus episode number 13, and this has been a long and hard technical road, but I think we finally got it licked. I can actually see Katherine's audio is being recorded and mine is being recorded, so we're all good. And I have with me today Kathrin Hutson, who's been very patient with these problems. So welcome aboard, Katherine. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well now, Lou. I think we deserve to have a victory dance after this.
I think so. And a nice scotch or something, too, would go down
yes,
great.
Please.
All right.
Absolutely.
So, Katherine, you are a writer, and your specific, or one of your specific genres that you write in, is dystopian science fiction, which is obviously a big field, but you do, of course, write other things, and we'll get into that. But before we do, just a little bit of background on who you are, where you are, and what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Kathrin Hutson. I live in Vermont currently. I am married and have a 2-year-old, and we've got 2 dogs up here in New England. We've been here for about 2 years, so I think we like it. And I have been writing since I was 10, so it's been a little bit of some time, and it's always what I wanted to do. I majored in creative writing fiction at the University of Boulder, Colorado, University of Colorado at Boulder. Woohoo! And it's been a long time since I was in college.
Okay.
And I've always knew that I wanted to write fiction specifically. So now that is what I do full time, all day, every day. And I'm living the dream. I get to do what I love and pay the bills at the same time with the same thing, which is very cool.
Yes, indeed. And I'm curious about because you went to school in Colorado and you're now living in Vermont, which is basically across the country. Your writing group or fellow students at that time, were you like supporting each other during the writing course? So you had writing groups and things like that?
We did, yes. So it was basically the classes have assignments every week or two, which was writing short stories, which I am not particularly adept at. I prefer novels to write, but we workshopped each other's stories in class. And then a few of us even got together and we created I guess it was maybe sort of its own form of self-publishing, but we put up our own works after we would critique them for each other, and they went up on this website, and it never went anywhere, but we did work together constantly. I think I had those classes 3 days a week, and that was actually the first experience I ever had with writing something that I knew was absolutely awful and that showed when I turned it in.
Right.
So having other students in my class, other writers, tell me, hey, this fell short on so many different levels, and just rip the piece apart, like to shreds, was an incredible experience for me, because I'd always received feedback that was, oh yeah, this is so great, this is fantastic, like nothing else. So I really love it when someone can dig into what I write, and if something's not working and someone can explain why it's not working, then I am all for it. You know, the I just didn't like it, or I just liked it, don't particularly interest me to hear those things. I like to pick things apart. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Cool. And has those relationships continued now that you're across the country, or do you have a different set of resources to help you with your writing?
Well, there's a lot of things happened in between there. I met my husband in Colorado, and then we moved to South Carolina, and we were there for a few years, got married there, and I was a part of the Charleston Writers Group in Charleston, South Carolina, and we met once a week. It was just 5 of us, which was fantastic, and we all got to workshop each other's work. And actually, that was the critique group who inspired me and pushed me to turn what is now Sleepwater Beat, my LGBT dystopian sci-fi, and which it became an international bestseller this April, which was very cool. So they pushed me to turn that from its original form, which was a completely disjointed, ridiculous, experimental long short story
Oh,
that
cool.
I critiqued with them. Yeah.
And congratulations on hitting the
Thank
list.
you.
Yes, that's awesome. So you've moved around quite a bit, and yet you've maintained some writing groups and that. Do you have a first reader? Is it your husband or is it somebody else?
It is not my husband. So he will be the first person in any situation to say, oh yeah, and Katherine's a full-time writer. Katherine's an author, and Katherine did this and this, but he hasn't read any of my books.
Oh, okay.
Which is totally fine. Some people don't read fiction.
Sure.
I have actually a couple of fellow writer friends who I actually met first either through some collaborative projects with an organization I worked with a few years ago, or they were clients of mine and I edited their manuscripts. And so I was fortunate enough to find, I've got about 3 people who will read anything I send their way, and vice versa, of course, who give me invaluable feedback because they have seen my writing develop over the years. And it's a lot easier for me, especially now with the kid, and because I'm writing most of the time about 10 hours a day, to have those. Yeah, it's quite a bit to have those interactions with people online. I don't get out of the house very much, but I do absolutely still have a core group of people who have been with me actually through the entire process of publishing my book since I put out the very, very first one. And so they've, been with me through the evolution of Kathrin Hutson's craziness with books.
Okay, very cool. So let's pull back a bit. And you mentioned off the top that you knew you wanted to be a writer since you were 10 years old. Was there a specific incident or dream, or because I've talked to a lot of writers and this always seems to be a common element when they were younger. Is there some specific incident in your life that tripped that for you?
Yeah, it sounds like maybe even dreams are a common element in starting. That is what happened with me. I had been having this it was actually quite terrifying and frustrating and made me livid. I was having this reoccurring nightmare for a couple of weeks about my favorite movie at the time, which was Fern Gully. And
sometimes called Avatar.
Right. Yes. Just more cartoony.
Yeah.
I absolutely hated the ending of that movie, even though it's my favorite movie. And I kept having this dream. It was like every night for a couple of weeks that I knew I was dreaming and I wanted to change the ending and I just couldn't get it to change. And it was just tearing me apart. So I woke up on the morning of my 10th birthday, and it just occurred to me out of the blue that, oh my gosh, I could rewrite the ending to this and maybe give myself some satisfaction here and quit having this dream. And I didn't actually rewrite the ending to Fern Gully, but I did start writing, and I just wasn't able to stop after that.
Okay, very cool. And so this carried on, and as you said, you went to school and got a degree in creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
During that time period, what was your writing process like? How did you start out? Lessons learned, and have you evolved and changed now that you're a professional?
Yes, to all the above. When I was in high school, actually, was when I really, really started getting into the actual act of writing and enjoying it. And really, I couldn't stop. I scribbling away in my notebooks in pretty much every class. And all my teachers thought I was paying a lot of attention to class and taking a lot of notes, but I was actually writing through all 4 years. But and then I would come home after school, get my homework out of the way and write until I was too tired to stay up anymore. And so I finished a gigantic whopper of a book my junior year of high school. And then in college, it was more, I was working on short stories, and it was just kind of every couple of weeks I'd have to write something new. And I would go there's a little atrium in the dorms where I lived, where I would go in the middle of the day when everyone else was gone and I was the only person in there. And I would just sit there and write all by myself, which is, I prefer to be all by myself for pretty much everything, writing included. But it was very sporadic, and I can say that now that my writing process was sporadic and not very structured, and things just kind of always came to me.
Right.
And I never quite experienced writer's block per se until my life had to be put on pause for a little bit, and I went off course of what I had been planning for myself, and there was a period of time where I didn't write for 4 years. And so it's an interesting time period to look back on now, where I was all the things keeping me from putting pen to paper, and most of it was fear of being awful at it the longer and longer I didn't write.
Right. Yeah.
And then when my daughter was born, I realized that I needed to put myself first just a little bit in some ways, and give myself that permission to start writing again, because if I didn't, I was going to lose my mind. So I got back into it and saved myself, which was good for everyone all around. And really, I just started my process and getting into it, like making actual goals for myself, the beginning of 2018. So, January 1st rolled around, and I said, okay, I want to put out 4 books this year. That was my plan. And that required writing 1,000 words a day, Monday through Friday.
Right.
And then that was, writing a book in 14 weeks. And that seemed insane to me. That seemed absolutely insane to me until I did it. And then I did it again and again.
Cool.
And then, yeah. And so now my process is I sit down and write every single day. I wake up at 3:30 in the morning so I can get some hours in before my daughter wakes up. No writing can be done when I'm with her.
Right.
And so I write for a couple of hours, and then she wakes up, and we get her up and ready for the day. And she's in summer camp now, which is great. She'll be in preschool when the school year starts. And then I just keep writing. I have a standing desk, which is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm not sitting for 10 hours a day.
Cool.
And it's really wonderful. And all the back pain I had and tingling fingers and numbness
Right.
are a thing of the past.
Do you have a treadmill?
I don't have a treadmill, but I have this really cool little mat, like support mat that has like raised sides and a little kind of ball thing in the center. And they market it very well as a playground for your feet, which sold me and actually is very accurate. So I walk around on that while I'm writing.
Cool. Self massage.
Yeah, it's really nice. And
That's
get some
interesting.
exercise in. Yeah.
I've not heard of that, and that's interesting because I've heard of writers with stand-up desks, and some of them use treadmills as well, so to keep themselves active. But this mat thing is a cool idea too. Cool.
Yeah, it is. It is very cool. So yeah, I think that the best, or maybe the most important thing that I've learned about my process, and because I have so many deadlines and I'm working on so many different projects, is that I have to write. First of all, I get up early to start, so my brain is fresh and I keep my body moving. And then even when it feels like I have no idea what I'm writing or where I'm going, I just keep doing it. And that becomes, like exercising, like stretching a muscle, like any runner or sports athlete or any kind of athlete will train and practice and get better. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's like making any habit. So that is what I do every day. And I try as hard as I possibly can to stay off the internet. I also have found it's super helpful when I'm writing to put names I haven't decided on yet, or places I need to go look up, or certain details. I put those in bold and in brackets while I'm writing. So I go back and do all the research later, which makes the first draft come out so much faster, and I hate research.
Yeah, that is actually a very good tip. I think for a lot of starting writers, don't get hung up on the details. Just put like place markers and come back to it later on, like you said, after you've done the research.
Yeah,
because that just becomes like a roadblock to writing.
It does, and I'm sure there are people who really enjoy the research aspect, and I know there are other people who absolutely loathe it, like I do. So it can definitely dampen one's enthusiasm for the project if it has to be split up by research. But it was a game changer for me putting in placeholders, and that really, really, really helped keeping in the flow and getting all the way through a first draft before trying to figure out any of the researchable things.
Sure. Okay. So let's talk about your latest project, and that is Sleepwater Beat. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So I'm interested in the premise, which you can explain to us, and I'm also would like you to tell us why you've included a LGBT aspect to your stories.
Yeah. So Sleepwater Beat is a story of Leo Tiefler, and she has what she later finds out to be they call it the beat. They call it spinning a beat. There's a certain group of people and who have the ability to elicit physical responses in excuse me, in people who hear them speak a certain kind of word, so or certain type of speech. It's pretty much like superpowers but with the spoken word. So I like to elevator pitch for this book is the girl with the dragon tattoo meets X-Men. And it really is. Thank you. And there's no murder mystery, but beyond that, those two things are mashed up fairly well. Describe this. And so Leo basically, she's homeless and has been through a whole bunch of really crazy, intense stuff. It's a very gritty noir feeling narrative style in this book, which is quite different from many of the other things I've done. But so her beat, her special ability is that she can make anyone who hears her beat believe absolutely whatever she says, and it doesn't last forever. It has a shelf life, and it gets her into a lot of trouble. So she's kind of running away from all that, and then she meets Carl, who also has the beat, and he introduces her to an organization called Sleepwater, which at first just seems like a club of people who can all do these strange things with their abilities with spinning a beat, and turns into a way deeper rabbit hole than Leo ever expected. And there's government conspiracies and human experimentation and all kinds of being, running away and gunfights and being kidnapped. And Leo just goes with it for a while until she figures out what it is that she wants in a group of people where well, lost my train of thought on that one. She's trying to find a place for herself. She's trying to find where she belongs and trying to find people who will accept her and want her around, not because she can spin a beat, not because who her parents were, which is a big thing in the book, and not because of what she's done or what mistakes she's made, but just because of who she is, which she doesn't really know in the beginning of the book. So that part of the character arc is hers as well. And I really loved writing this book. It was, like I said, originally a short story. So I did a lot of surgery with it when I was turning the short story into a novel.
Right.
But the first half, part one, and it circulates between the present timeline of the narrative and Leo meeting Carl and finding Sleepwater, interspersed with these scenes of her past from when she was 5 years old up until the day that she ran away and chose to be homeless intentionally. And then these little interludes of news report transcripts, right? So we find out some other kind of creepy, weird things about this dystopian world in the very, very near future through what it's supposed to sound like listening to the news or listening to some really crazy news channels. And that was a lot of fun because I was able to put in these really shocking aspects to the world through the newscasters just talking about them like they're everyday normal things. And then it ties into Sleepwater and people who have the beat and have that ability and the way the rest of the world is reacting to them.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. So that was very fun. I definitely enjoyed this book. And the LGBT aspect, I can say short answer for that, Leo was modeled off of also the character Lisbeth Salander from Stieg Larsson's Millennium series. So Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is, right. If we took off all the goth costuming and gave her, an ability to make everyone believe what she says instead of being a computer hacker, she would probably be Lisbeth Salander. So there's some of that in there. And also it felt right for the story in a lot of ways. And for Leo's character in terms of she's really living in the gray area. There's no black or white or right or wrong or, who she is, who she's not. And I think, I wanted to put in some kind of romantic element, which is not romantic at all. So it's a love interest thing. I don't write romance at all very well, but I wanted to give her a bit of a break with some kind of relationship in there. And the thought of writing in a heterosexual relationship felt like it would be more insulting to her character and her character arc, and probably more degrading to her than it was ever meant to be. And who knows if this wasn't an LGBT book, maybe it would have worked out just fine, and it would have been a completely different story in other ways, because she would have reacted differently to things.
Right.
And also, I mean, there's not a lot of LGBT dystopian sci-fi or even LGBT dark fantasy, which is also, I'm working on a new series in that genre as well. And it's something that I have wanted to see more of, and it just turned into something that I was able to write more of as well. And I have put a lot of myself into Leo's character, definitely more than I've ever put into any other character that I've written. And so it felt natural, and it felt like drawing together all the other pieces of her story. It made sense. It made sense. For her.
No, that's good. I was just curious.
Of course.
I have to commend you on coming up with the concept of the beat, because it's very hard to come up with new terms for something, because like obviously you have like either the shining or the push, or something like that. So the beat is an interesting concept. Did it take you a while to come with that phrase, and was that deliberate because you didn't want to be copying other stories that have tackled a similar concept?
Yeah, I definitely do not like reusing other authors' words for things, even if they are part of pop culture or part of the lore of a certain what have you that you're working with. I do like to stand out.
That was very clever. Cool.
Well, thank you. And I think actually I had the title before I ever started writing that short story.
Ah, cool.
But it was very specific. I had the story in my head, and I had the idea of the beat in my head, and it came about as something between beats being a specific space of time inserted into a line of dialogue, or inserted into, in a script, right?
Sure. Yep.
For, like someone's pausing for a beat.
Yep. Cool.
And playing off that, and playing off beats in poetry, and then playing off like literally cops walking the beat. Because the short story started off with a lot of Leo and issues with the police. So it's a mix of all those things together, and it's stuck, and I really like it too. Thank you. That's a great compliment.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Oh, well.
That's really cool. I'm just curious about the actual power itself. Does it cause side effects on the people that she uses against? I don't know if you remember, like Firestarter with the father, when he would push people. If he wasn't careful, they would spin off, and like whatever sort of like hidden psychoses would come to the surface. I'm thinking of the leader of the shop. He had a thing about snakes or something like that.
Oh, so, yeah. So as of right now, the only side effect that it has, so it's not like a what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't build upon itself, or the more she spins a beat to like a specific person, the more affected they are by it. But it's anyone who hears someone else's beat, they get all foggy eyed and they can't think about anything else that's happening. So just kind of the rest of the world just disappears.
Okay.
And so depending on what the different person's beat is, Carl's beat is that, when he chooses to use it and he's speaking, his words have a physical effect on whoever hears him to the point where it make them feel like they're getting high, serious, like serious narcotic effect. And so there is actually, in his story, there's someone who ended up getting addicted to listening to him spin a beat, and some pretty crazy things happened as a result. So everybody has their own different thing, and it affects everyone differently. So, but then, it doesn't last super long. So the more regularly somebody listens to it, it affects them for a shorter and shorter period of time. So there is a ceiling effect there.
Sure. Just two more quick questions on the beat. I don't want to give away all your secrets, but I'm just curious. Sorry.
That's all right.
Does the person using the beat, is there a price attached to it? Because most magic systems that are the most interesting, there's a price to be paid. Like, do they get fatigued, tired? Do they get a headache or anything like that? Or
they don't, but the price to pay that happens comes about in Sleepwater Beat and will continue through the rest of the Blue Helix series is someone, I won't reveal who, someone has developed a compound that either strengthens their beat and takes it to a whole different level where they can do a whole bunch of different things, or it gets rid of it altogether and it strips them of it.
Interesting.
And then, so in terms of that kind of effect on them, personally, those things happen in Sleepwater Beat and will happen in the future. The check and balance there with the beat is that it doesn't work on anyone who is hearing it through any kind of device.
Right.
So it doesn't work over the phone. It doesn't work on recordings. It doesn't work, any way like that. So if they're not directly face to face with someone, they're out of luck.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, my last beat question.
Okay.
To people that have the beat, can they affect other people with the beat? Or are beaters immune from each other?
No beating.
No beating.
They are not immune from each other. They do have a shorter recovery period where they come back to themselves and their brains, and they realize what has happened in a lot less time than people who don't have the beat as well. But that's part of the community of Sleepwater as an organization, is that they're all outcasts essentially and being hidden from society, and also being sort of tracked down for various purposes. And so they come together and they are helping each other and protecting each other. And there's that sort of, that marginalized community support and living system within them, and they just hang out and spin beats with each other. Like, so it's one of those like, hey, this is a thing that we do, and we do it all together. Some of them don't participate in those little powwows because their beats are not pleasant, right. But they are there, So it does affect everybody.
Okay, cool. And so this is the first book in this series. And how many books do you see for this?
There will at least be 3, probably 4, and I will have to see when I get to 3 and or 4. But every book in the series will be from the point of view of a character in one of the previous books. So it continues the story and has the same kind of structure, and so it will go back into that character's past as well, like it did with Leo's, but it will be from a completely different character while we still get to see all the same characters together and new ones.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm actually reading a Mr. series by Irish writer Tana French, and she does like the Dublin Squad, and every book takes a character from the previous book and makes them the main character of the next story.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It's
cool.
fun.
Yeah, cool. And it sounds like you've got this series planned out, and so I would sort of circling back to my questions about your writing process. Have you become much more of a plotter versus a pantser because of this?
Absolutely not.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So that's about as far of a plot as I have gotten, Lou, honestly, to know where I know what character is going to be the main character for book 2, and I know where this general story is headed. I have about 3 scenes in my head. The rest of it is sit down and pump it out, and I'll figure it out along the way, and that is where the magic happens.
Right. So if you knew the ending to your story, would that kill your incentive for writing it?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah, fits my own story. The fun is in putting that puzzle together as I'm writing it.
Okay. Cool.
And that's, I love it. I love that part.
Okay. So this book is out now?
It is. It is out now, available everywhere. And I don't know, I'm not sure when this episode is going live, Lou, but at least until, from between now and, I don't have my dates. I can't even think about it. I can't even remember. I was going to say, hey, it's going to be on discount. And I can't remember.
Okay. Well, I'm sure they can find out when they go to your site.
You definitely can. Definitely go to any of the places. And available on all retailers and at KathrinHutsonFiction.com, my website.
And how far are you writing into the next book?
Well, I am working on my new LGBT dark fantasy series right now. So the next book in the Blue Helix series has not commenced at this point. But as soon as I finish Vessel Broken, which is the dark fantasy series now, I will be getting right into that second book.
Okay. And Vessel Broken, is that the first book in that series as well, or
that's the series name?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So right now I'm working on the first book in that series, and that's called Imlock Fractured. I can't rightly say when that one will be out. I'm still working on it. The prequel to the Vessel Broken series is called The Summoner Thief, and that one is coming out on October 8th in a boxed set called Playing with Fire. And so it's 12 USA Today and International Best-Selling authors in this box set. The theme is forbidden love. So we've got, there's some paranormal romance and sci-fi, and I've got this dark fantasy. And while it has somewhat of it's not romantic either, because I don't do that. There is an intimate relationship in The Summoner Thief. We'll just put it that way. And it is not one of those unrequited love stories. It is brutal. And I'm so excited to hear people read it and let's hear what they think. Cool. So that'll be out in October.
So you definitely have a dark, hard edge to your writing then.
Always. It's no fun without it. Yeah.
Curious, what other books have you liked or series? TV or books, whatever. What's your jam? What gets you excited?
Hey, well, okay. So I have to say The Dark Tower, because that is my number one. I'm actually reading through it for the 10th time right now.
Wow.
So yeah,
good for you.
I take Midworld very seriously.
Awesome. Yeah.
That is my number one favorite series. And then along with that, I was reading A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin years before HBO became a thing with it. So those books are one of my favorites, and I'm still very upset that he hasn't finished the series yet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what's the problem? All he has to do is adapt the episodes now, right?
And he already knows what people don't want for an ending. So
this is true.
Check that off the list. It's fun.
I don't know if it's what they want. If the ending wasn't okay, if it was just that it was too quick. I think that's a part of the problem. But that's a whole other topic. But
it's true. It is true. I had absolutely no problem with the ending. We'll just put it that way, and probably because a bunch of people died. So I was very happy.
Yeah.
I had no problem with it, and I thought it was great. So, I'm maybe shoved into a box for that. But yeah, so I absolutely loved his writing so much. And actually, he has a couple of sci-fi books out that were from, like the 70s, the 80s. Yep. I love those too. So
cool.
Good stuff. And and Kushiel's Legacy series by Jacqueline Carey. And that's those are wonderful. That may be more like what The Summoner Thief is going to turn out to be in this box set coming out. A little bit inspired by Kushiel's Legacy in a way.
Cool.
My own spin. So yeah, I love those, and I love giant long series.
Awesome. All right. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'll just ask you if there's anything that you would like to mention that hasn't been brought up that you want to promote, or
I think I pretty much just put it all out there.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Excellent.
Well,
Perfect.
I want to thank you very much for your time and patience, and because we've done this so many times, and
we made it through though.
I knew it was going to be good. We just had to get through it. So I had a lot of fun talking to you, and I wish you all the best with your work. And who knows, maybe our paths will cross down the road at some convention. Are you going to any conventions, or do you do that kind of thing? Or
I have been to only a few. I will most definitely be heading in that direction in the near future. I don't have any plans nailed down, but I went to one fantasy and sci-fi expo here in Vermont.
Right.
And it was actually a lot bigger than I expected for being in Vermont. I sold, a couple dozen books and got to meet some cool people. There was a lot of cosplaying and a lot of Star Wars robots, and it was fantastic. So
great.
Yeah, hopefully I can get into some other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.